Wow, such an enthusiastic crowd. Glad to have you guys here. I can tell the Iceberg community is doing well because the DataHub community would call this a conference, not a meetup. A lot of people here. Glad to have you all. I'm going to talk a little bit about us, the speakers. One thing you'll immediately notice is that Ryan is not next to me. Unfortunately, he came down with a stomach bug today, so I will be playing the part of Ryan as well. I'm John. I'm a co-founder of DataHub. I originally started as an engineer building a lot of the core DataHub platform, moved into product in the last couple of years. Ryan is a senior manager of data at Demandbase, and again, I'll be kind of taking his part. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in Demandbase, so I had Ryan send me the canned marketing blurb about what Demandbase does. And I'll read it to you here. I want to make sure I don't get anything wrong. Demandbase is the only pipeline AI platform that empowers GTM teams to automate growth at scale. With a unified view of data, insights, actions, and outcomes, B2B enterprises can seamlessly align and execute their account-based GTM strategies with confidence. Thousands of businesses trust Demandbase to maximize revenue, minimize waste, and consolidate their data and tech stacks, all in one platform. All right, now that we know exactly what Demandbase does, I'm sure everyone knows now, we will move on to the presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about the Demandbase data platform. I'll kind of breeze over it again. I'm not going to claim to be an expert in the full Demandbase ecosystem. And then we'll talk about Iceberg at Demandbase, where DataHub fits in. We'll talk about DataHub's Iceberg REST catalog implementation and how it was adopted at Demandbase. And then we're going to talk about the road ahead, both for Demandbase data platform and for DataHub. All right, so Iceberg was adopted at Demandbase about 4 years ago. The foundation of the platform is data. And when they set out to build a new data platform, the things that mattered to them most were that the solution they went with was cost-effective, vendor-agnostic, and obviously had a healthy and active community, you folks there. And obviously, Iceberg has all three of these. And so Demandbase ended up building their data platform around Iceberg about 4 years ago. Now, as the implementation proceeded, they started to have some different challenges. Maybe you guys can relate. The first was around discovery. Iceberg felt like a black box to many people within the organization, especially those folks who maybe were a little less technical and maybe who weren't as familiar with the Hive Hadoop ecosystem and some of the catalog ecosystem around Iceberg. And there was a big debate that occurred internally at Demandbase about what catalog to go with. There was so many choices. They struggled with the questions like how do they integrate the catalog with their tech stack, right? How do they avoid vendor lock-in? They chose Iceberg primarily to maximize cost savings and avoid vendor lock-in. What features did the catalog have, right? Does it have RBAC, credential vending, catalog federation, all these questions? And they were left with a lot of options: GCP, Big Lake, Databricks, Unity Catalog, Gravitino, Polaris, the open source side of things. And at the same time, Demandbase had started to see traction with using DataHub to enable their analysts, their data scientists to find data within the enterprise for many different systems, including Iceberg. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about DataHub and how they were using DataHub. DataHub is the #1 open source data catalog. Just show of hands, have you guys heard of DataHub? How many people? Okay, about 50-50. DataHub has some great partners, customers, companies like Apple, Netflix, Visa, Notion. 14,000 members on Slack, over 3,000 organizations using, and around 3 million PyPy installs of the DataHub package per month right about now. And what DataHub was enabling Demandbase to do was index all of their data across platforms. So of course they had a lot of data in Iceberg, They also had BI assets, dashboards, and charts in other platforms. Power BI, Tableau, Looker are the ones most notably. And so DataHub kind of gives you that in one central plane for your analysts to find data across 80 plus platforms. We also enable you to find data using natural language. This is actually something that's pretty recent to the DataHub offering, with an open MCP server as well that you can plug in into. They were also beginning to use DataHub for data lineage, right? To understand how their data flows from upstream to downstream, where it comes from and where it goes ultimately. This is a little bit of a look at DataHub there. And then finally, they were starting to consider data quality, right? So managing freshness, volume, column validation through the catalog. DataHub also offers governance features, so business glossary, domains, giving you tools to organize your data more logically than physically. And recently, there was a lot of discussion that started in the DataHub community about Iceberg. Primarily, we felt that there was a variety of different companies. Demandbase was one of them. Ryan was one of those champions who were looking for a way to integrate the Iceberg REST catalog into DataHub so that they could instantly use DataHub search and discovery, lineage, documentation, ownership on top of their Iceberg data and make it much more visible and accessible to their data analysts. And so after a bunch of internal debate within the DataHub community, we decided to build an Iceberg REST catalog implementation directly into DataHub, which enables you to register, discover, access Iceberg, warehouses, namespaces, tables, all the things you would imagine. Support for namespaces, tables, and also granular permissions through DataHub so that you can dictate who should be able to write to these tables and namespaces. An easy-to-use CLI for registering these different assets. Credential vending on S3. And then, of course, all the great stuff we kind of talked about, rich context management with DataHub, the ability to add documentation, tags, terms, owners, data quality checks, and ultimately just make your Iceberg data more visible and more accessible in one central kind of pane of glass. So now I'm going to go back to Demandbase's side and kind of walk through why they ended up choosing DataHub after considering a lot of different Iceberg REST catalog implementations. The first reason was that they really had this vision to mend the gap between the technical data catalog, the traditional Iceberg catalogs, and what we're calling kind of the business catalog, which appeals to most notably the less technical users in the organization. So something that was more UI focused, enabling you to search, document, add properties to your assets, unified with the data operations. The other thing they got right out of the box is kind of this unification, right? They were able to centralize on deploying one tool. So operationally, they didn't have to manage a separate catalog. They could just have DataHub, which they were already maintaining. Specifically, they were kind of evaluating, what to do in the world of the tabular acquisition. They had long-term uncertainty about where the catalog would go. We kind of announced that support for Iceberg right away, so that played into their decision. And they already had users sort of using DataHub. So when Demandbase made the decision to move to the REST catalog, they had to actually migrate about 200 tables across their 3 environments. They break it into dev, stage, and prod. And I think the biggest challenge that Ryan had cited was just coordination among the teams. But ultimately, it was a pretty smooth process. They were able to get it done in 2 to 3 weeks just by standing up the DataHub catalog and starting to point their readers and writers towards that after an initial migration. So they were able to unify the business and the technical catalog and direct everyone to one central place: engineers, data analysts, data scientists, both the technical folks and the non-technical folks. They also were able to start putting practices in place to require things like schema documentation, asset documentation directly in DataHub. So a couple key wins that we want to go through. So the first is that they ended up with a unified source of truth, right? A consistent, reliable view of the data. And we kind of brought that all together in one location. Again, they were able to make everything discoverable across distributed environments and also across different types of tools. So what I mentioned earlier, DataHub is not just a tool for Iceberg. It is not just a tool for your warehouse. It supports integrations with your BI layer, your transactional layer. So they're able to bring in their transactional data upstream, their transformation flows and Airflow, and Spark, along with the warehouse lake ecosystem and downstream into the BI ecosystem as well. And ultimately, what this amounted to was that they were able to kind of build shared context and bring together the different silos of the business. So I'm just going to walk through a couple of the screenshots that Ryan had provided. He was going to walk through a demo. Unfortunately, he won't be able to do that. So this is kind of just a little bit of a look at how Iceberg tables will show up in DataHub and all of the kind of rich features you get around the Iceberg table. Oftentimes we like to say that DataHub is really about the who, what, when, where, and why around the data. And so that's really what you're able to add here in DataHub. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about the road ahead at Demandbase and then the road ahead for DataHub Iceberg REST Catalog. So at Demandbase, I think they're going to continue to invest in this idea of context around their data. They see it as critical for getting their data ready for AI, right? Having that semantic context, the documentation, the accountability information, the classifications around the data. In particular, they're looking to adopt the medallion architecture. I don't know how many people are familiar with that, but kind of breaking their data into tiers of gold, silver, bronze, depending on where it lives and kind of the life cycle of transformation from source all the way downstream to product. Quality is another focus for them, so trying to become more proactive around data quality management and monitoring, again, using DataHub. And then stats and lineage, all of those great things as well. And the final thing that they wanted to begin looking into is natural language discovery and analysis. So both using natural language to find the right data to use for a particular analysis, whether that's a dashboard or table, and also performing that analysis as well. So actually generating and issuing the queries to answer key business questions. All right, and for DataHub, a little bit about where we're going with the Iceberg REST Catalog implementation. So initially, we rolled out support for S3 as the primary lake, and we're going to be extending that to GCS and the Azure ecosystem, ADLS. We also are looking to implement catalog federation, this kind of idea of one catalog to rule them all. I know we've heard that many times, so we'll see. And then finally, transactions or support for multi-table commits. In the initial implementation, DataHub only supports that single table commit motion. All right, I breezed through it without Ryan. If you want to get involved with DataHub, this is my chance to plug DataHub because Ryan's not here. Please join the Slack community. Again, it's not as big of a community as Iceberg, so you'll have the chance to get in on the ground floor. About 13,000 people have already joined. We'd really appreciate seeing you guys in there and kind of engaging in the debate around these things. We also have a summit coming up. Again, they call this a meetup. We call this a conference. We have a conference coming up. Context, it's the Metadata and AI Summit. You can register online if you just scan this QR code. And with that, I want to spend some time. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to take them now. Otherwise, my co-founder, Shashanka, and I will be kind of walking around for the next couple hours here.
Yep. Any questions? Raise your hand. Oh, was there a question? Yep. Oh, here you go.
Hi, Alex. Yeah. Hi, my name is Rajdeep. I'm from AMD. So in terms of we want to replace Alation with DataHub. it's a big task because there is a lot of business pushback. So one of the things which pushback is data stewardship and the matureness of a business catalog. Where do you think how much we can rely on that with going with DataHub? And by the way, next question is related is, do you support S3 anywhere, like any homegrown cluster like Minayo or anybody, Vast or anything?
Yeah, so on the second question, we do support, sorry, is the question about whether we support S3? Yes, we do. Any S3 compatible API, yes, we do. And on the first question about migrating off of Elation, so yes, the business catalog is something we're spending a lot of time investing in. We started, when we first started, we were mostly focused on the data engineer persona and kind of making their life better, indexing and connecting to the world of all the data tools. But in the last year or two, we've been really investing in glossary, domains, and also policy management and policy enforcement across the metadata. So I think it's an area we're going to continue to invest in very intentionally, and I'd love to catch up about the specifics of how we can kind of handle that.
Cool. Oh, coming up.
Hey, the MCP and the natural language querying is very interesting. Would you manage sharing some use case where like user really kind of love this idea, love this new MCP capability to enable certain new use cases?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question. Yeah, the MCP server has gotten a lot of early adoption, and the kind of the use cases we've seen initially are actually tying up the context that DataHub has with other players in the ecosystem like Snowflake's new Cortex Analyst, which essentially you can think of DataHub as kind of that human layer on top of all the data, the human context layer, and Snowflake or Databricks as the technical layer. And so if you connect up the MCP server of DataHub, which is able to help you find the trustworthy data or the right data to use for a given analysis, with something like Cortex, which can actually perform the analysis, well, then you're able to essentially have the CEO or CDO ask a question like, hey, what was revenue like? What was product usage like last week? And actually get an accurate response. So we really see the world, like the future, as AI agents being able to answer business analysis questions in real time. And again, there's kind of two parts of that question. If you think about if someone told you, hey, go figure out what the revenue was last week, you'd have to first find the right data across the entire estate, and then you'd have to go and perform the technical analysis, actually issuing the query. So we really see DataHub as being well positioned to answer that first question, looking across the entire data ecosystem.